who's in the room slot today, I'd like to introduce Nick Obolensky, who's already introduced himself partially. He is founder of a company called Complex Adaptive Leadership. Nick has a quite amazing background, actually, so hold on to your horses for his quick biography. He's got international leadership experience, which he's already alluded to, organisational development expert with practitioner experience. He was the youngest major in the British Army. He's been a FTSE director looking after 12,000 staff and effected change for over 45,000. He's a professor at leading business schools, an author, a strategy consultant and a green energy entrepreneur, although I gather from what you said, Nick, that the timing for that wasn't quite right. You were probably a little bit ahead of the curve, so maybe ahead of your time.
Lost a lot of money. Right idea, wrong time.
Ahead of your time, as they say. So welcome, Nick. Let me start by asking you, what problems do you solve for your clients? You've already mentioned a little bit about who your target client is, but what sort of problems do you solve for them?
Well, we deal with sort of medium to large organizations who are in a world of complexity, and therefore their employees, their staff and their leaders are very, very busy trying to stay on top of everything, applying probably the wrong approach to deal with complexity. And the problems we solve is we reduce their stress, we improve their work-life balance, we improve their productivity, we improve their innovation, and generally we improve their lives.
So principally within those organisations, who are the key people that you would be tending to work with?
So our speciality is leadership development, organisational development. Now, most people who do leadership development will think in terms of hierarchy. And so, you can have a hierarchical approach to leadership development. The top guys get sent off to Harvard, the middle guys get Korn Ferry, the guys at the bottom get, local provider. And that's what we call horizontal delivery. We actually do vertical delivery because our approach is based on science. It can be applied by anybody, followers and leaders at any level, at any time, in any country, in any organization or industry without changing it, which means therefore we can deliver what we can deliver in vertical slice. So we can have in the room a C-suite executive and a management trainee going through the same program.
Excellent, thank you. And so if you think about some of your clients over the last couple of years, and so what are sort of the major benefits and improvements, and how much of that has dropped to the bottom line, how much of it's been a culture change?
Yeah, culture change. Well, when I hear the word culture, I read my Browning, as they say. We try and focus on what they're actually already doing rather than putting things into the organization. It's about releasing what is already there. So the key benefits that people get, or the organization gets, is firstly, better productivity, anything between 20 to 30% increase. Innovation, we normally get a 10 to 15, maybe 20% increase in innovation. People get less emails, they have more time, better work-life balance. But of course, that starts spreading through the organization. So if you're doing an organization with a vertical slice, especially if you took an intact team, the impact you get back in the organization is a lot higher. We do face-to-face, but increasingly now we're finding we get better results with online programs, much more sustainable, better environmental impact, and actually we get better results.
And so are those online programs getting incorporated into the company's learning management systems and things, so that there is an ongoing resource, or are they one-off, or how does that actually work?
So we are accrediting internal. Basically, when people go through our program, they become real fans. We do alumni research, researching people 5, 6, 7 years after they've done the program, and they're still implementing the approach, which is completely new. We've tried to accredit consultants, but trainers. The problem we found, though, is that they have a training mindset. So what we found that works really well is that people who go through and become fans, they join as observers to begin with for future cohorts, then co-deliverers, then coaches, internal coaches, guides. We call them guides because they're not really coaching, it's more guiding, and then they can actually deliver the program themselves. So we accredit managers within an organization who've been through the program to actually deliver the program. We find that's far more effective than sort of hoisting our, let's say, wagon onto the traditional HR approach. HR is still very much rooted in the past in their view of leadership. We find that actually leaders who've been through our program, they get it a lot faster, and that therefore they can deliver it much better.
Okay. So in terms of those, so it's a sort of a spreading domino effect almost, I suppose, within the organisation. Is that sort of how it sort of organically then affects the rest of the organisation? So how
Healthy COVID, healthy virus.
like the virus? I'm not sure that's a good analogy. Is it? Okay, so in terms of where your clients come from, is it word of mouth? Do you do a lot of marketing? Is it through your connections and history, or where do clients typically find you?
I would say 90% is word of mouth. People who go through our programs spread the word to other people, and they bump into the pub or whatever it is with a mate from another company who's going on about the micromanagement and all the rest of the stuff that you get when people try and manage complexity in the wrong way. And they say, well, you should speak to Nick. We also get quite a lot of work through other coaching organizations, consulting organizations, because we complement very much what they do. So if any of your people here, they've got clients where they're pulling their hair out saying their mindset is just too fixed, we specialize in changing mindsets. So it's very much word of mouth and in partnership with others. We tried doing all of the sort of marketing and all that stuff on LinkedIn, etc., but quite frankly, it hasn't really returned the investment that we're looking for. So essentially, it's word of mouth and partnerships.
So, because it's a very relational business, isn't it? So it's not the sort of thing I guess people are going to open the door to without having some insights into you and the company and what you do and things. Yeah.
Yeah, and we say to our partners, you don't have to sell the program, you just have to sell a meeting. And we come along with you and sit down and we talk through, we focus on the end result, what the client is trying to achieve. Basically all of our programs are customized, but it's the same intellectual property based on our research.
And so in terms of the companies, are they spread all over the world, or does it tend to be located in a couple of the main countries, or what's the spread of businesses?
All over the world,
Yeah.
from as far north as Sweden, as far south as South Africa, as far west as California, and as far east as, I don't know, China, Australia, Indonesia, all over the world, and all over the industry. So everything from, central banks, which are very governmental mindset, all the way through to quite sort of innovative companies like Alibaba or innovative companies like Mingyue, which is an AI company. So it's all over. Okay. And I think that's the reason for that is because what we're dealing with is a global phenomena.
Yeah.
We start asking whenever we do work with a group of leaders or managers, or we say, what are your key challenges? And we get them up on the board or whatever. And we say, well, look at that. Imagine we asked another group of people in another part of the world, in another industry, in another company, would it be different or the same? And people look at it and go, yeah, it'd be the same. So actually, a lot of the pain points that we deal with are to do with the context. It's not about individual failing or a company problem. And if you understand the context, you can deal with them a lot better.
And how much do you have to adapt what you do because of the different countries that you're working in? Because obviously different countries do have a different culture, and the way that they work is different within their leadership teams and things. Does that affect how the program has to be delivered, or?
Well, it would affect some delivery in terms of, for example, language. So when I'm in China, I can't, deliver in English. Everything has to be in Chinese. But apart from the language change, no, because our stuff is based on mathematics and science, gravity works the same all over the world. So we don't have to change the approach. We don't have to change the content, but maybe the way we would deliver it might be a little bit different. But essentially, the content will be the same everywhere.
Okay. And you mentioned AI. Do you see AI starting to influence how you might run the program and things, or is that just another factor to take into account?
Well, we're not using AI ourselves, although some of our clients are AI companies, and we're looking at, they're doing some really exciting stuff. For example, the AI company we're working with actually is up in Beijing. They've turned reporting completely upside down with a completely new approach to how they report. In other words, instead of reporting upwards and telling the boss what they're doing, the boss tells you what he's doing, starting at the CEO and all the way down. And then they use AI to see what's happening, to then give people warning of what's actually emerging, either in the company or outside. Now, they didn't do that and they didn't work that way until we started working with them, and we showed them how self-organization can be much more dynamic and much more effective than, let's say, the traditional hierarchy. And to get an idea of what that looks like in Europe, you just have to see what the Russian army is doing versus the Ukrainian army, and you begin to get an idea of how self-organization and dynamic agility can work a lot better than the traditional, the boss tells you what to do.
So are you seeing a shift in the larger companies between the traditional hierarchical organization and a more self-organization, slightly flatter? I mean, I know when I draw our organization charts for our members for their future operating models, we actually draw it as a circle. We don't draw it as a hierarchy because we want to look at it in a different way. So is that something you see bigger companies really starting to embrace and change, or is there a lot of resistance?
They're trying to, but they're struggling. Large companies are very sort of, let's say, quite bureaucratic, quite hierarchical. And I think the approach that we offer is that you don't have to get rid of hierarchy. It's not about replacing hierarchy with self-organization. It's about enabling that hierarchy to be much more effective and having self-organization at the same time. So it's, if you like, a rigid hierarchy or traditional hierarchy and self-organization together, they can be very effective. And I think organizations all over the world are struggling with this because, number one, they think it's either or. Number two, they think that self-organization is threatening to hierarchy, i.e. there's no control, you end up with chaos. And also, number three, I think 90% of HR systems are very invested in the traditional old ways of working, despite the fact that they want to innovate and be new, but their systems are, let's say, rooted in the past rather than the future.
Okay. What would you say is the thing that makes your organization different from others in the sector? I mean, do you actually have a direct competitor as such, or, I mean, are there others in this space offering similar things? Or
I don't think anybody's offering what we're offering, so that's our USP. We offer a mix of complexity science and Chinese wisdom, and maybe a bit of martial arts included in there together. No one else is doing that. I think there are some people who are doing complexity work. All I would say is that our approach is much more, let's say, traditionally researched, 25 years of research behind it, and we've got a track record in getting results.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that we do that not many others do is we actually do get results and we measure results, not happy sheets of workshops and people being happy, but actually measurable, tangible results back in the workplace to increase productivity, innovation, work-life balance, etc. So there are a few things that we do that others don't. And there's a lot of competition out there for leadership and organizational development. And we have to differentiate, I'm sure, like everybody else.
And so when you're working with a company, is it a long-term project, or is it you go in and do a bit, go back again, a year later? How does that dynamic work?
Well, we like to inject a virus and then walk away. We don't like to be ending up like a leech,
right.
Sucking blood. So it really depends. Our ideal clients are the ones who are serious about getting some change across the organization. So we can do large scale, interventions that I mentioned by accrediting managers. So we move from a pipeline company to a platform company, giving them the platforms that they can deliver themselves. But we also do, the dog and pony show. You turn up, you do a day, you tap the boards, HR are happy, get a tick, and maybe somebody in that group will do something different. So we do a range of interventions from, a short, even keynote, all the way through to a 3 or 4 month program. It depends on what the client wants, depends on what their budgets are, depends on what they want to achieve. But we find that when we do it for a keynote, for example, because we talk about new stuff and it's always very interactive, they get as much enjoyment, if you like, than doing the long-term program. Whether or not you do a 1 hour keynote and you actually change people's mindset, maybe you do, but generally it's more about what I call something interesting, raising awareness rather than actually getting results. So we like to work on getting results, but we also do awareness stuff as well.
Which is sort of the seed almost, I suppose, isn't it, for potentially, because people have to process those sorts of things before they have that light bulb moment that says, actually, this is something we can change and we need to change. So
absolutely, and that seed can turn into mighty trees. So, we never turn away, very rarely would we turn away the client looking for us to do something with them And if they say, well, we just want a 2-hour keynote, fine, we'll do a 2-hour keynote. We could do something fun. And sometimes people say, you know what, we should invest a bit more because we need to learn more about this. So as you say, it can grow.
And so are you, from the companies that you've worked with, are you seeing what you've done with them knocking over into how they recruit and build the teams within the companies? Is it affecting, that sort of process around, so the sort of mindsets they're looking for to bring in as new people, particularly at the middle level, middle management, senior level management?
Well, because we changed the mindset of people in the organization, inevitably there is some impact on how they recruit and how they, if you like, lead teams. To be absolutely frank, we have not done the research in terms of have you changed your recruiting process or your recruiting approach. So the answer to that first part is I actually don't know, but I can guess that I would imagine that a manager or a leader who's been through our program will look at someone across the table who they're recruiting, and maybe in a slightly different way because they have a different mindset. They're looking at a leader rather than a follower. In terms of how they manage their teams, oh yes, we do a lot of research on that. And we find that team engagement, team innovation, and team productivity increases quite dramatically, and it's over time. So it's not an aha moment. It's not a magic bullet. It's something that increases over time. So we went back and we did some research last year with 120 people who've been through our program maybe 4 or 5 years previously to ask them about that. Has your team engagement improved? Have the team productivity improved? Has innovation improved across the company? And there was about 85% agreed that productivity had improved, and about 76% had agreed that innovation had improved. And
do they see an improvement in retention rates as well in terms of staff turnover and things? I mean, does the process tend to weed out the people who shouldn't be in the company and keep the ones that should be in the company?
Well, that's one of our failings. We haven't done that research. I mean, my suspicion is that if people are more engaged, and if they're given, the Dan Pink drive, autonomy, purpose, and development motivations, they would stick around longer. We haven't done the research to go back and say, what is your turnover? Has that increased? Has that improved? But again, my suspicion is that if people are more engaged, they stick around longer.
Yeah.
And the best people, sorry.
Or else you get rid of the ones that really aren't a good fit at all. So.
Well, we always say that everybody's a star and you don't get rid of people. They either shine in the sky or not. If they're not shining, you do one or two things. You remove the clouds or you move them to somewhere where they can shine. Yeah. Everybody is a star. So this idea of sort of getting rid, or this awful word, making people redundant. I mean, the only way to make people redundant in my experience is a Browning double tap to the head. They fall over, they're dead, you put them in a box, you bury them. Redundant means no further use. People are always useful. You can't make people redundant. You might make their job redundant, but the people, you can always enable them to shine.
Yeah, it's that part of sort of looking at the human in business, isn't it, as opposed to the cold facts of running a commercial organization, I guess.
Yeah, and we don't sort of go into the humanity of things, but what's interesting is the feedback we get is, wow, this is much more human. So maybe we do it in an oblique way, by maybe destroying some of the myths about how organizations work and maybe removing some of the traditional assumptions which are out of date about what leaders should be doing. To develop leadership, you develop leaders. Well, yeah, that's fine, but actually that's out of date. Leadership is now more of a dynamic. So I think you do get much more humanity, or people get much more humanity. And certainly in terms of work-life balance, maybe at home they look a lot more human as well.
Yeah, sure. And thinking about the larger companies as well, because obviously you're dealing with the leadership teams, but is there a need to also influence the stakeholders, who potentially the board are actually responsible to for private organisations? So is there a place there for influencing how they look at how a business operates?
So leadership traditionally is seen as something that goes down. But we actually like to say, well, yes, but it also has to go up. So in terms of influencing stakeholders across a business, yes, we have had groups within our cohorts which come from multiple stakeholders. We've also worked with supply chain. So, for example, we've had a supplier company, we've had the client company, we've had the client customer of the client. So we've done supply chain because it can go lateral as well as vertical. In terms of stakeholders in an organization. Essentially, what happens when people go through our programs is they start connecting sideways more to sideways stakeholders, but also they start managing upwards. You know, the old days of leaders knowing what to do are gone. Okay. The reality is they don't know the answers anymore, and they know they don't know, but they can't say they don't know because they're expected to know, by a whole lot of people who know they don't know anyway. And in the old days, they turned to God, and today they turn to McKinsey. And that's one of the charades that are happening all over the world. And what we do is we, if you like, take that charade away so the stakeholders can be much more engaged, but in an indirect way.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Final question then. If the people in the room could ask you any 2 questions, what would they be?
I have no idea. Why don't we ask them?
Who's got a question? I mean, I suppose one of the questions from me is, obviously a lot of the businesses in the room are micros. So is there a particular lesson from your mindset piece that people can think about regardless of what the size of their business is that would be of interest to them?
So in terms of a micro business, traditionally, you start in a micro business with the idea of what you want to do. And you are the driver, and it's your vision, and you're the driver. But as the business grows, you need to know when and how to let go. And there will be a stage where you will need to do that as a micro business. If you want to grow, when and how do you let go? And how do you get your people to lead you? Because everybody you have in your company has the amazing potential to, if you like, contribute. But the way you lead them will dictate to what extent they contribute or not. So that would be the first thing. The second thing I would say is that you deal with clients who would be very good clients for us. We love to work with partnership with people. If there's anything you've heard that you think, you know what, this can connect to what I'm doing, I can bring something more to my current clients, give us a shout.
Fantastic. And I suppose the other thing for micros as well is thinking about some of those thoughts that you said, is where you're not building a team that works, you know, or employees, because a lot of small businesses now are not going to grow by employing lots of people. They're going to grow by buying in services and collaboration. So I think there's a value in people thinking about their suppliers as being collaborators, because as you say, everybody's got different experiences and knowledge and insights to bring to the piece, and working with your team of suppliers can actually be quite a powerful way of doing things in your business as well.
Absolutely.
Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask Nick? Raise your hand or just unmute yourself. Barry.
I was absolutely fascinated by that, Nick. I thought it was a brilliant presentation. I loved your comment. I love your comment that I'm looking at my own notes now because I was scribbling mightily as you went along. But I love that statement that you said leaders who don't know something are not allowed to admit that they don't know because they're expected to know. And it seems to me that that's how politicians like to come across. They want to persuade all of us that they know what they're talking about when they obviously don't. And I thought that was a brilliant example of changing mindsets, which was a point you made very early in your presentation. Have I got that right? And do you want to develop that further?
No, I think that's absolutely right, Barry. Which is why perhaps, how many of you trust politicians? And I think this pressure of I'm the boss, I'm the leader, I'm on the pedestal. I should know the answers. I should give the answers. I should know the solutions. Now that's been around for thousands of years, and that's been absolutely the right assumption. Leaders were the ones who knew, but today leaders no longer know the answers, and they know they don't know, but they can't say it because of this expectation. And I think as soon as and that's a paper tiger. Because as soon as you say to leaders, you know what, it's okay not to go, it's okay not to know, they go, oh, really? Okay, so what do we do? How do we get over that? So I think it's all about letting go and letting go this idea that leaders need to know everything. There's also, it's a flip side because it's the followers who have as much responsibility, Barry. If we're looking up to the politicians saying, what do we do? Give us the answers. We know they don't know, but come on, you're the leader. We expect you to know. You know, the followers are as much responsible for this, what we call the great charade. And that's why, you know, we like doing vertical development, because followers need to change their assumptions and empower, you know, when we talk about how do leaders empower subordinates, that's a really good question. But another question is, well, how do subordinates empower leaders? And subordinates can empower leaders by not expecting them to know everything.
No, I think that's absolutely fantastic, because I mean, I've been in a leadership position, and that's exactly how I like to lead, is by admitting there are certain things that my subordinates know a lot more about than I do, and I need to ask their advice. I mean, the biggest mistake, it seems to me, that a leader can make by pretending he knows everything, you then make decisions based on a lack of knowledge. If you make decisions based on something you know nothing about, you're going to make some massive mistakes, and you're going to hurt people.
Well, I wish you'd spoken to Putin a year ago.
Thank you very much indeed. I don't want to hog this now. It's somebody else's turn.
Craig.
Greg's waving here. Yeah.
Thanks, Jill. Morning, Nick. Nick, fascinating. I just wanted to engage with you at a later stage. We were tasked by a customer or a client when we came out of COVID with the concept of mental well-being, which was bandied about at length and still is as a buzzword. But once we're in a software space, so, you know, I have nothing to do with what you do in any way, until we were asked to come up with a triaging monitoring platform that was unobtrusive in staff's lives. And when we did the research, it came out in the product we have called Stress Express, which really is looking at people's workplace well-being. And when we started looking at it, it has an AI component in it, which starts to learn people's voice and visual components. What we started to find in the place, which of course mirrors what you were saying, is there's an enormous amount of complexity in the relationships that happen within an organization. And it's that complexity, not always necessarily you think a person is stressed based on the amount of work they do or their mental well-being. We find in 60% of it is generated in a home environment. And what we also see when we look at the complexity of people in their teams, which is just the data we're collecting, because that's what we do. We've created a platform that just collects individuals' data based on their levels of stress and process of well-being. We're seeing that even just changing a line manager in an organization creates a completely different complexity in terms of people's level of well-being, if you want to use that word. Simple things where they see teams fall off on performance, and it's just a line manager somewhere that's changed and they have a different management style. Or similarly, a procurement issue, because in many cases, you're dealing with sales teams or outside clinicians or people in the field who are a little estranged from the business itself. And little things like maybe a relationship with the call center and the complexity with that and how they manage from that point of view, or how slow procurement is. So it's a multifaceted functionality in the complexities of how people perform in their organizations. And we're finding, because we just do and collect the data and pass it on to the customers, that a lot of these complexities give a completely different picture of how organizations work and run. It's amazing. I mean, it mirrors exactly what you say.
And you've also kind of reflected a little bit, because, I mean, not many people have heard of complexity science. You know, anybody heard of complexity science? Nah. But it's based on hard science, biology, math, you know, chemistry, physics, but also mathematics. Not many people have heard of chaos mathematics either, but a lot of people have heard of the butterfly effect, which is one of the aspects of chaos mathematics. And what you mentioned there, Craig, is, you know, little small things can get a big effect. And again, one of the things that we work with is, you know, rather than having huge, big programs and projects, which are okay, you know, they work and been there, done that. It's about little things, trying little things out, making small changes, and those small changes have a ripple effect. And it can be a very small change that can get a huge effect. So again, that's applying the science of complexity to improving people's lives.
Yeah.
Now, we don't tell people what those changes should be because it's too complex. There's no silver bullet. But I think once people understand, A, how complexity works, B, with the new mindset, and then C, how small things can get a big effect, they themselves choose those small things, and that's how we can get the results. So, yeah, absolutely. As you say, it's a complex issue. But the good news about complexity is underneath complexity, there are a few simple rules. So if you can understand in a complex dynamic, what are the few underlined simple rules, then you can get some great results. If people want to see how that works, by the way, there's a video on YouTube. How do we introduce this? It's called Who Needs Leaders? And it's a 3-minute video, and it shows how do we introduce this thinking to groups. So it's a fun video, and it's a game that, we've been, well, we have the IP on, but everybody's doing it, so whatever. But it's Who Needs Leaders on YouTube. It's 3 minutes, and I hope you have fun.
That's brilliant.
Thanks, Nick. I'd love, Nick, if you'll just put your details on the system, because I'd love to chat to you some more. I'll stick to my knitting, which is the data collection
Sure.
and the AI, but it would be great to have some input.
Sure, no worries. I put it in earlier. I shall do it again.
Thank you.
It will
I
be
didn't
on
see it. I'll have a squiz.
the meeting.
Thank you.
That's excellent.
Okay.
Thanks very much indeed. Thanks, Nick. That was a fascinating insight into what you do and this whole piece. I think there's a whole load of things that could be discussed in more detail for another session, perhaps. That's something we could.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.
One of the things we could pick up at the business show at some point.
Look forward to that.
So our expert insights this morning is entitled Preparing Brands for Battle, which is what Matt sent us, which is fascinating. So I'm delighted to be joined by Matt Hunkin from Valhalla Branding, whose strapline, as you will see, is Fearless Creativity. Although Valhalla was only set up just over a year ago, he has over 30 years experience working with much loved brands, first in publishing and then as a creative director in a content marketing agency. He launched Valhalla last year to focus helping people get their brand shipshape and battle ready. So over to you, Matt, telling us what is branding as the very first question.
Thank you, Jill. I'm glad you asked. It might be because of the line of business I'm in, but I find a lot of people that the internet is full of opinions on what branding is. And most people seem to start with the message that it's more than just a logo, and it's more than just visual branding, which of course is true, but equally, visual branding is a massive part of what a brand is. But just to rewind back before solely visual branding is actually, my view on it is it's people's emotional response. It's how they respond emotionally to you and your business. So it's multifaceted. It can be about it's definitely about what you do. It's about what you say. It's about how you say it. And people interact with your business in a number of different ways, whether that's kind of driving past your building and seeing your branding on the outside of it. It might be seeing a post from you on social media or visiting your website. It might be buying your product. All those interactions give you an opportunity to influence the way people think about you. You haven't got full control over how they think about you. They own that, but you can certainly make a difference. And it starts with understanding exactly what you are and what you do and what your values are.
Interesting. So, because one of the things we talk about on some of the training I do is we talk about all the customer touch points. And I don't know if anybody's ever come across a guy called Eric Sylvan who ran a company called CD Baby, and they looked at all of their customer touch points, including what you got when you ordered something from them. And actually the message that they came up with your order form is absolutely hilarious. I mean, if you Google CD Baby Jet on Google, you'll get loads of things back and you can see what was said, but you can't read it. Although it's very American, you cannot read it without smiling. And it changed their whole business because it was who they were. Derek is to make people smile. That's one of his missions. And therefore they reflected that through everything they did. So is there an importance of that consistency through everything that a company does in terms of how it presents and deals with its customers and prospects?
Completely. Consistency of everything, really. And basically it comes down to authenticity. So a large part of the process that I use is about finding what that is. And then again, every time people interact with you, it just underpins that a bit more, and they get a feel for whether they want to align with you as a brand, whether they want that relationship. I look forward to checking out CD Baby, but it reminded me of Innocent Smoothies, who were brilliant at tone of voice, and they've got a very friendly brand, and very kind of non-corporate, and the way that they talk to the customers, if you're to read their packaging or read their website, is a way that's kind of, I mean, a lot of people are doing it now, but when they're one of the people who started this, and it's kind of shockingly and surprisingly informal and funny, and they will say things like, on the side of their packaging before the ingredients and the nutritional information, they will say stuff about, here's the boring stuff, and it just gives you a sense of who they are, and that will resonate with the market and the customers that they are chasing. So it boils down to there's an audience, and often that word can be replaced with customers. There's a message, there's what you want to tell them or what you want to do for them, and there's how you deliver that message. So that's all there is, really. And to go back to your first question, that's kind of what branding is, really.
Fantastic. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying, because there's a company called Atlassian, which some of you may know, because if you use Trello, they're the people that sit behind that. And I was looking at their carbon footprint policy, and it is written with a degree of humour, which there are not very many of those that are. And it tells you a lot about who they are as an organisation, and how they've really thought about how to engage with their audience on something that's a fairly complex and dry subject. So, so there's lots of people out there doing branding, Matt, as we have discussed before. So what is the thing that's different about Valhalla?
Well, I think that you're right, that there are a lot of people who do it to varying degrees, and I think the thing about what I tried to do with Valhalla is, ultimately, I think everybody's goal is roughly the same, in that they want to reach and have that engagement with their audience. The thing that I've realised is people's starting points are different, and that's what I bring to the party, is I can help you work out where you are, where you want to be, and then we can address how we get there. So in some respects, I've forgotten the name of this chart, but I'm sure most people on the call will know it. The chart about known unknowns and unknown unknowns. I help people in the first instance with the unknown unknowns, and I can, I can tell where your branding is. We can discuss. It might be that you come to me with a particular business problem, and it's not always a design problem, but it might just say, we don't seem to be reaching this kind of area of our audience, or people think this about us, or whatever it is. That is the starting point that's unique to that particular job. We work out where you want to go, and then by going through the process, we can work out how to get there.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to a little bit what Nick was saying about, leaders not knowing everything. So of course, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So
I'm glad you said that, actually, because I scribbled that down, and Barry asked the question as well after Nick spoke, and you're the expert on your business. It's not me. So that's why the discovery phase of the project, where we start, is all about me learning about who you are, what you stand for, what it is that's different about you, and that can be quite an eye-opening experience, I find, for the people I work with, because I guess you kind of know your business. You might not be able to describe it in as an efficient way as you'd like to. Because you kind of know, and it's an organic process sometimes, and you've ended up where you ended up. But what I found is the process of me understanding what you do, so that I can help you brand it properly, is actually a really useful sort of almost an outside eye looking at your business, and it helps you think about your business in a way that you hadn't done before or hadn't done for a long time. It might be that. You know, that in itself has got sort of tremendous value.
I would totally agree. I mean, I often say to people that if you, I mean, we say when we're delegating to copywriters or graphic designers or whoever, you know, when you're doing the briefing session, if they are not spending a good hour and a half, 2 hours with you finding out about who you are, who your type clients are, what your offering is, what your offers are, don't use them because they're not asking the right questions. But going through that process can be so valuable for the business owner because it asks you questions that maybe you haven't wanted to ask yourself potentially. And certainly maybe haven't thought about the answer. So I think just the briefing can be huge value.
And what it might, the upshot might be that, you know, you tweak your business slightly.
Yeah.
And although that might sound like the tail wagging the dog, it's not really, because it's kind of, it's viewing the business through a lens which shows up whether, you know, exactly what it's got to offer really. I mean, this isn't always the case, but it is the area where branding almost kind of morphs into business consultancy.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, before you can effectively communicate the message, you've got to make sure that the message is worth communicating.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, and interesting enough, I was talking to somebody about marketing the other day, and they were saying one of the things they find is that a lot of the businesses they start to are almost starting in the middle. You know, they're wanting to start their marketing, but they haven't done the basics of, you know, Rudyard Kipling's, you know, who, what, why, when, how type stuff. So
absolutely.
And listening. So yeah, it's interesting that branding piece can bring people right back to holding a mirror and lens up to their business and saying, you know, who are they, what are they about, what is it they're trying to do, and all those things. So what are the values that Valhalla or yours, I mean, the brand has values, but they're really your values, I guess. What are the key values for you and what you do from a business point of view?
Yeah, I think often that is the case, that your personal values and your business values are, you know, are aligned. I'm sure it's not always the case, but knowing what they are is obviously important before you can successfully brand a business. So the Valhalla brand values are courage, and that's just you know, the willingness to go outside of the comfort zone. I mean, setting the business up in the first place was that. You know, courage to try something creatively that might be a bit out there, but it's I always find that going too far is the best way to find out how far is far enough. You know, if you just go in micro steps, you won't get as far as you possibly can, but break it and then roll it back until you get to the point where it's just right. You know, be bold. And I've tried to apply some of these values, give them a bit of a Viking kind of angle. So no guts, no glory is the way I would describe the courage part of the Valhalla values. Secondly, allegiance.
Right.
Which again, I thought, to give it the Valhalla description, you know, I'll swear an oath, because I can imagine the Vikings probably did that. That you know, it's my brand too. If I'm working with you, you know, I'm in. You know, I'm signed up too. So you know, we're partners really, not adversaries. But and you know, and the analogy I like to use is we're both on the same side of the table working this stuff out together. Traditionally, branding and other creative agencies were on one side of the table, the clients are on the other. You'd get a brief, which was effectively starting halfway through, as you said earlier on, and then you would have to come up with some creative and sort of try and persuade them that you know, this was the route they needed to take, with a load of guesswork, you know, because you're kind of you're guessing what they need, and often they'd be asking 2 or 3 other companies to do this at the same time, and they'd pick the one they liked, and it seemed so kind of surface level, you know, that there was no real kind of foundation to it really. So being both on the same side of the table and working this out together seems like the way to do it, as far as I'm concerned. Craftsmanship is another one of our values. I've got exacting standards. Like you said, I've been doing this for over 30 years. I've been lining things up for 30 years. So, if you get me on your brand, it will be lined up. If your brand is a lined up brand, it might be your brand is all about not being lined up, and in which case nothing will be lined up. Just probably finally, simplicity. When you find out what that message is, tell it in the most direct way possible. People haven't got time these days, and you need to sort of instantly get the message across, and people feel a message way quicker than they see a message.
Yeah.
Which is why the visual delivery of it is so important.
Yeah, I love the courage one, because I think it's probably one of the ones that a lot of small business owners don't think they have. They probably have in spades, just because of the fact they're they're small business owners.
Yeah. It's nice to have that there, and it's part of my strap as well, fearless creativity. And sometimes, of course, I'm not fearless. None of us are really, but it reminds you to sort of act in a fearless way.
Yeah. So when you're not preparing brands for battle, what do you get to?
I suppose the main thing that I do, other than branding, is I'm also a youth cricket coach. So I coach the Gloucestershire under-18 girls cricket team at the moment.
Oh, fantastic!
And also the Gloucestershire women, part of that coaching group. And I think that it aligns to the way I approach branding a great deal, actually. For example, there are lots of better coaches than me, but I've been doing it a while, and I like to think I do okay. But I know for a fact that the moment, don't know if it was an epiphany, but the point at which I kind of realized that it wasn't about me and it was about the athletes and the players that I was coaching, I became twice the coach overnight, and in a way that's exactly the same thing about branding. It's not about me to force my preference on you. It's about discovering what your brand is, and it's there already, really. Sometimes it just needs unearthing. So that keeps me busier than you'd imagine. Obviously, well, I was going to say obviously more in the summer than in the winter, but the summer's the good bit, where you're out in the sunshine and on the grass and travelling to lots of lovely places. The county girls get to play in some really nice grounds, actually, so that bit's really cool. But we probably actually spend more time in the winter training in sort of cold sports halls and things like that. So it's kind of a year-round thing, really. Maybe just dips off in sort of November, December, and then we're back again in January. So that's the other thing I do.
Fantastic. Yeah, I used to play county netball, so
okay.
Used to go all over the country to all sorts of places we've probably never heard of as 16 or 17-year-olds. So planning my job in the UK very well.
So many of them are just thinking about the next bit, and they feel like they're on a trajectory and they want to get to the next level, and they want to play for England and all that sort of stuff. But it occurred to me that just if they could enjoy it for what it is, right now, then there's a lot to enjoy in it.
There is, yeah. That's brilliant, Matt. So has anybody got any quick questions for Matthew? I mean, we've had two really amazing conversations this morning. So if there are things that you want to follow up with Nick or Matt, do get in touch with them.
I've got a question for Matthew. Matthew, going to clients, you see how they're branding, and then you take them through the process. Do you see a common trend, typical pitfalls that people?
Did you hear Nick's question?
I only part of it. Sorry, Nick.
Yes,
pitfalls.
The question was around, do you see common pitfalls when you're talking to the different clients? As Nick was saying, when they put up the challenges within a business, I wouldn't say they're generic set, but there are common challenges that all businesses have. Do you see a similar thing on the branding front?
Yeah, I suppose that there are some common things that pop up. I mean, each one's unique as well. But one great example is if you. It was interesting. Nick, you talked about the kind of vertical way that you kind of deliver some of your thinking, and I'll often do that with big teams and speak to people from various kind of levels within a business or a brand, and that is because everybody needs to feel ownership of the brand ultimately. Otherwise, they won't use it. So that's really important to sort of listen to everyone. But the what I was going to say is, imagine a scenario where there are 3 directors of a business, and I'm asking them my framework of questions, and we're having a conversation about exactly what the brand is, and invariably they all think it's something slightly different from the other 2. And that is why that conversation is so important, for 2 reasons, really. One, it's really important for their business, because they're usually quite surprised that everybody isn't on the same page. But also, I'm never going to solve it if they all think it's something different. One of them will be happy and the other 2 say, oh, I don't think it's quite that. So having that conversation at the start and solving it, it is a real step along the way, and it's so important. And very often, again, going back to what you said about starting halfway through, if you do start halfway through, you don't have that conversation. And 2 of them, one of them is going to love it, and 2 of them aren't going to be so sure.
It's interesting, isn't it? My mentor used to do a lot of sales training, and he found that you talk to a team of 10 salespeople and they couldn't even all agree what the products were, let alone anything else. So
totally. It's quite.
You've got to get this commonality from the beginning, because otherwise you're on a bit of a lost cause, aren't you? Really.
Completely.
Brilliant. We've got time for one more quick question for Matt before we move into the challenge, which is sort of going to follow on a little bit from this. Natalie.
It's not so much a question, but more just a comment, really. I really enjoyed your talk, and I can relate to so much about what you say with what I do, particularly the bit about where you meet them where they're at. Because often, particularly with websites, it's so tempting to go, well, this is what's wrong with it, and but actually you want to kind of go, well, this is where you're at, and meet them where they're at, and talk about the problems they're having now, because invariably you take them back a step, but they don't necessarily need to know that. And I do find that really, really helps. It's very disarming when you're with that kind of approach. And I loved your thing about being on the same side of the table, and working with them, like their success is your success. And I find myself saying that, because you're not on the other metaphoric kind of round table, and that was really good. So yeah, thank you very much. Be nice to maybe connect and have a chat.
That'd be great. Thank you, Natalie. And the other thing about it is, it should be good fun, shouldn't it? It should be an enjoyable experience. So you don't want it to be a kind of although I'm preparing brands for battle, you don't want it to be a battle. You want it to be a battle during the process.
Well, it's that facilitation and kind of bringing it alive. That's your job, right? Is to hear what they're saying and kind of download it all, and then be creative with it. So they've got the answers. They just haven't been asked the right questions.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Basically you're gathering information.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, I probably said this last time we spoke to Jill, but I remember somebody describing it as, they were talking about brainstorming, actually, and I'm sure we've all been in brainstorms, and often brainstorms are used in and around creative things and branding things, and the expectation is the answer is going to come out of the brainstorm. Rarely they do.
Does it?
And the phrase I heard used to describe it is that brainstorm is preheating the oven, and the second part of it is for the 4 a.m. epiphany. Which is kind of how it works, really. That thing where ideas arrive when you're not looking for them, but you can sort of basically prepare yourself and create an environment where they're likely to happen. And then just I find the gathering of information is a really good way of doing that. And then the creative, it always seems to arrive.
Yeah, and it's like that jigsaw puzzle where you get it all out on the table and it's all a big mess.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of over time sifting through, but you could, if you had the answer straight away, if it's that easy,
yeah,
it just wouldn't work. You've got to kind of let your subconscious do the work. And then,
yes.
I mean, my ideas come when I'm dog walking, and I'll be,
yeah.
oh my goodness, why didn't I think of that before? But you need to give your mind time to kind of digest it and let it do its magic, I suppose.
Completely. And I used to worry that what if nothing arrives, you know? What if I can't? Well, it turns out that so far it does, you know, so I trust it now.
Yeah.
It's called emergence. It's called emergence. Things emerge.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Matt. Thanks, Natalie, for those insights, and thank you,
Natalie.
So, the Business Kitchen Challenge this morning is actually nicely follows on from the concept of brainstorming and stuff and planting these seeds in your brain. I was doing some work with one of my groups yesterday around paradigm edges, and we were looking at how the edges of industry can sometimes be where there are some opportunities to do things very differently. If you think about Apple as the example, you know, a computer company that went into the music industry effectively because they could see a paradigm shift. So my question for you, and this is one, I'm going to give you 2 or 3 minutes to think about it, because you're not going to necessarily come up with any answers today, but this is one to put in the back of your subconscious, Natalie, which is, what's impossible to do in your business, but if you could, it would fundamentally change your business for the better?